off and running like the 7 quarterbacks that are going to go in the first round. Maybe it'll be 8, maybe 9. Who knows? NFL Draft tomorrow night. That's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Tim Murray. How you doing?
Honestly,
yeah,
I'm ready for the draft to be over.
Oh, I was asking about the Clippers.
Oh yeah, no, I'm all right. I mean, that was a tough loss yesterday for the Los Angeles Clippers. It's so funny how, depending on how you feel about a team, right, the narrative is shaped after a result.
Sure, of course. That's the way it works.
You're right. So, like, for example, had the Mavericks had the identical game as the Clippers last night, it would have been like, man, you know what? Mavericks got away with one. Or the Clippers got away with one here, I mean, the Clippers won by double digits, led the entire way, and we were talking about the Clippers surviving. But last night, though, everybody was like, that Clippers think it's over. So, look, tough loss. They shot like garbage and still were within 5 points. A little misleading score. But you got Kawhi Leonard back, got a game under your belt. Now you get 2 days off, get ready for a road game. Side up one apiece. Crazier things have happened. Let's see what goes on. It's a best of 7. Clippers actually beat the Dallas Mavericks last time when they were down 2-0 in the series. So, crazier things have happened.
Are the Vikings going to trade up to number 5, to number 4? Paul Charchian will give us that answer in just a little bit. I fell into the trap of that first mock draft that I put out on Monday of the trade that everybody had. And I have now stepped back from it, and I said, no, I've tweaked it. Because we asked yesterday, well, what if? What if Drake May goes 3? Do the Vikings trade up? And that is what's so fascinating when I look at J.J. McCarthy here. And I know a lot of things have been focused on the quarterbacks, but J.J. McCarthy's over-under is sitting at 5.5 plus 140 at DraftKings right now to the over. Minus 180 to the under. There was a lot of reporting, and Daniel Jeremiah has kind of alluded to, if the New England Patriots stay at 3 and draft Drake May, which is not a certainty, but a lot of different reporting out there. Albert Breer, who's located in that area, seems rather confident that it will be Drake May at 3. Then Minnesota, according to Daniel Jeremiah, won't be as aggressive to go up. So the J.J. McCarthy over-under is unique to me and fascinating to me. I know you've bet it. As we sit here, roughly 24 hours, 26 to be exact, from the start of the NFL draft, J.J. McCarthy's draft position, are you surprised that it continues to go up to the over? Plus 140 over, minus 180 under, when you have pointed out, Drew Dinsick on our show pointed out, that really you're betting on a trade unless you believe that some of the smoke coming out of New England, and Tony Pauline reported a couple weeks ago that Elliott Wolf, the acting GM, is interested in pushing for J.J. McCarthy. What do you make of J.J. McCarthy's draft position? Because I think that is really interesting, and I think that kind of shapes how we look at the quarterbacks and how they'll ultimately go off the board tomorrow night.
I mean, I feel the same way I felt about this entire time, which is we're overdoing it, right? I mean, there's a very clear path here that Minnesota can just sit back if they really want J.J. McCarthy, which, again, as you have pointed out, the names that keep popping up in recent weeks are actually Drake May and Jaden Daniels.
They love Drake May. There was a report, I think it was out of Boston, that they would move. I'll find the exact report. I think it was from Jeff Howe, who covers the team. Mm-hmm. I believe it would move heaven and earth to get up to 3 to get Drake May. That's Minnesota. We'll find out more coming up in 15 minutes or less than that with Paul Charchian. But, okay, what if they stick and pick, which is a saying I've heard a lot this week. I kind of like it. Stick and pick, not trade. Okay, what if they don't move? Then what do we do? What do they do? How does the market fall?
Right, but to the point of J.J. McCarthy, over 5.5. I think it makes a lot of sense that it's, and by the way, he's still potentially going to be a first-round pick, so it's not like it's insulting to what J.J. McCarthy can potentially be. But I think when you realistically evaluate where we're at with these teams, if you're a team like Minnesota, by the way, the other kind of fly in the ointment for J.J. McCarthy being a top 5 selection is that the other, we'll call it quarterback-hungry team, is thirsty for one guy, and it's Jaden Daniels, who might be off the board by the time we get past 2, because he might be going to Washington, and that would be the Las Vegas Raiders. There really hasn't been anything tying the Las Vegas Raiders to J.J. McCarthy outside of them just being a team that needs a quarterback. And so they could stick around and get something there at 12, or excuse me, at 13. Or if McCarthy slips to, like, let's say 10, and if you want to leapfrog Minnesota to get him. But I think that there is a more plausible outcome in which J.J. McCarthy is, on the board at around 10 or 11. And to the Vikings, a quarterback-hungry team, think like, well, he's like our third-ranked guy, but he's here at 11. Pretty good value. Let's take him here. I think that there's more paths that lead to J.J. McCarthy falling outside of the top 5 than what it is. I mean, you go to, for Tim, for example, right? Let's go move past New England. Let's say they make a quarterback selection.
Yep.
At number 4, Arizona Cardinals, by all accounts, really want Marvin Harrison Jr. We haven't heard anything different outside of that. So if that's going to be the case. All right, the Los Angeles Chargers.
I just want to jump in there real quick with Arizona because Austin Fort, their GM, has said, and this has been reported wildly, they're going to wait until they're on the clock to make a decision about trading. They traded out last year.
Every team does, yeah.
And the thing about Arizona that I put on VSiN.com today was the way I look at it is, okay, maybe they get a good offer. But this is a Cardinals team that has 2 first-round picks. They have 6 picks in the top 90. How many picks does Arizona need? Because you know what they need more than anything? Really good players. Mm-hmm. And if you're at 4, and I don't know how they've evaluated it, but like you said, there's a common belief that Marvin Harrison Jr., maybe Malik Neighbors, but regardless, one of those top wide receivers, maybe the best player in this whole draft is going to be available. And everybody's like, yeah, you got to trade down. Well, who are they trading down with? They trading down with Minnesota? Then they're going to miss out on all of the good wide receivers.
Correct.
So I think Arizona, come tomorrow night, my gut tells me with 6 picks in the top 90, with the top 3 quarterbacks apparently being off the board if Drake May goes to New England, I think they stick around. Now, I think the caveat to that would be if J.J. McCarthy goes 3 to New England, I think that's where Minnesota gets very aggressive and races up to number 4 to get Drake May, with the reporting out there that they really, really like Drake May.
With the assumption that it's not Drake May at 2, obviously.
Correct, yes.
Because, I mean, look, I'm also...
You're still a little skeptical of 2?
Of course.
Okay.
Well, like, what about this whole draft process, right, has made you think that any information is solid? Outside of back in the old days, remember when they used to sign contracts before they were selected first overall?
Yeah.
Like that, outside of that...
I mean, we basically have that with Caleb Williams. Like, it is done.
Right, exactly.
Right? So we just don't have the actual contract. But yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold signed the massive deal, so that it was all done before
Matthew Stafford, all these guys.
Yeah, all these guys. Yeah.
So like, it's my skepticism is based in, I say, quite a bit of evidence that says nobody really knows anything before it happens. So I will believe Washington. By the way, a notoriously tight-lipped team, right?
Yes, with the new front office there. Yes,
and it is funny. We just talked about this yesterday, right? That the smoke around Las Vegas and Michael Penix is so strong that it's almost like they want you to know. But it's weird. We don't think that about all the smoke around Jaden Daniels in Washington.
That is true.
Just saying. I like what we choose to believe and what we don't. So, again, I'm just a healthy skeptic. We'll see what happens. I mean, not like healthy. I'm a little overweight. But, I'm a skeptic, I think that's me.
Well, it's funny because that's a really good point where you and I were talking off air before the show started about today was the day that the hot and heaviness of quarterbacks really ramped up. And we had diamond strong hands through this whole process, and we felt like we picked the right spot to go get under 4.5. We got plus 260 here in town. We felt great. Well, earlier today, I scanned the market, and we could get better numbers now. At that shop that we got the plus 260 stations here in Vegas, which, by the way, they will shut it off at 5 o'clock Pacific today. Just a reminder, 3-1 on the under, minus $4 to the over. DraftKings Sportsbook sits, I believe, still at minus 380. Only double checked. See, it hasn't changed. Yeah, minus 380 to the over, plus 260 to the under. And Circa sits at minus 350 to the over, plus 265 to the under on 4.5 quarterbacks. And I was just texting with our buddy Mike Sanford about this. It almost feels like everybody talking highly about Bo Nix is trying to convince the Denver Broncos, hey, we like them. You should take them at 12 when they're like the only team associated with Bo Nix throughout this whole process.
Yeah. So we also, like we were talking about this for, this is an example of, again, just why I'm skeptical. So we do have Matt Miller, who just released his most recent mock draft, his final one, right? Reports that Jaden Daniels is going to be the quarterback selection at number 2. Says, conversation I've had over the past week points to Daniels being the pick here, but I would also caution that Commanders GM Adam Peters comes from the John Lynch tree in San Francisco, a team that executed a leak-proof process when it took Trey Lance over Mac Jones and Justin Fields, so I can't completely rule out Drake May. Like, that's... Okay. We play both sides of the fence.
Yeah. Should be interesting. It'll definitely be interesting. We will take a gander at our final portfolio and how it all looks. I think I'm at the point, JVT. It shuts off for us here in less than 2 hours. I think I'm done. Like,
you better be.
This is where you get into a little bit of trouble, right? Mm-hmm. Where you start to believe all these different things. Markets are moving. I got into trouble last year, to steal a phrase from what people say about the New England Patriots. I'm a stick and pick with my selections here. All right. What will the Minnesota Vikings do? Could they be moving up to number 4, number 3, number 5? Or are they going to stick and pick? Paul Charchian, he joins us next. It is VSiN Primetime.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Draft night's going to be awesome here at the Vegas Stats and Information Network, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern here on VSiN Primetime. Myself and Tim Murray going to have special guests, Mike Golick Sr., Mike Golick Jr. We're going to dive deep into the draft prospects and predictions. I never promised I would do that. Stay locked in, though, for a special edition of the GM Shuffle at 8 p.m. Eastern. Of course, Michael Lombardi, Femi Abebefe bring you real-time analysis of first-round picks, and Michael, of course, will give his thoughts on every draft pick and trade as they happen. Then late night, of course, cap it off, 11 p.m. Eastern with VSiN Tonight, where the boys, Matt Humans, Wes Reynolds, get you all wrapped up with the first-round action. Check it out now and get all of your betting insights at VSiN.com/draft.
Well, depending on when the first round wraps up, you and I may run into the studio if 4 quarterbacks are only selected in the first round for Matt and Wes's show. So, or we might just be doing like jumping jacks in the background.
What are the chances we can break down Canucks Predators tomorrow during the show?
That's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Tim Murray. Always great to bring in our good friend from the Twin Cities, who is one of the more intriguing teams in this year's NFL draft, the one and only Paul Charchian, GuillotineLeagues.com. So I put the joke out there on Twitter that is the Vikings to 5 the most mocked trade in the history of mock drafts. I mean, everywhere you look. I fell for it initially, and I've since changed. So what's the latest you've heard, Charge? You're there on the ground. You work for multiple outlets there in Minneapolis. At 11, what do you believe the Vikings will do to address the quarterback situation?
Well, first, I think they are going to stay at 11. So I think that's the likelihood. And, every mock draft's got the Vikings moving up, as you mentioned, Tim, Jonathan. But it's a lazy narrative. It's mock drafters going, all right, I'm going to move a team to a spot that fills an obvious need that they've got. But the problem is, they need other teams to go along with this. The Vikings are more likely to stand pat because it's super expensive to move up. There are 3 teams in the draft that need starting quarterbacks, and they're going 1, 2, 3. They're not trading. They're taking the quarterback of the future. And then the Vikings have to ask themselves, how much are you really going to pay for the 4th best quarterback prospect? Are you really going to give up 2 firsts and a future first? It's so much to pay. Plus, also, they're battling the Giants, the Titans, the Broncos, the Raiders, the Jets. I mean, other people that might be looking to move up just like the Vikings are, and in many cases don't have as far to move up, and you wouldn't have teams that have to move all the way back to 11. There's just so many ways where the Vikings could hold at 11 that I think that's the likelihood. So then how do we bet it? Tim, Jonathan, if the Vikings hold at 11, they might get the choice of defensive players in this draft. There might be like 1 off the board to Atlanta or 0 off the board. So I think they go D lineman here. Probably edge rusher, but maybe not. There's a chance that they go defensive tackle here with Byron Murphy, maybe. But you can bet Vikings to draft defensive line first at plus 390. I like the 4-1 odds that they hold, that one way or another, this team is drafting D-line first. Right now, they don't have a D-lineman to start. They don't have an NFL caliber defensive end on this team. There's a great opportunity here at a great value. And I know I'm sticking with it. I think it's a lazy narrative to say this team's automatically moving up.
Love to hear it. So let me ask you this. We've heard two names that Minnesota allegedly covets, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. Is one of those names, if the unthinkable happens and one of those squirts out of the top three, like, is there a name of those two that would warrant them moving up? Do they love one of those guys really that much, or are those reports erroneous as well?
No, the Drake May steam is strong here, really strong. And, I think where it gets interesting and where I would back off my contention they hold at 11 is if May falls out to 4.
Yeah.
Then I think the Vikings get real interested in a potential overpay. Now, there's a number of connection points, none greater than the fact that they just hired Josh McCown, who coached Drake May in high school. I mean, they know all about this kid. And the rumors are they've been hot on him for a year, going back to this time. So if Drake May falls to 4, then at that point, this thing gets interesting, and I think this team makes a move then.
We're talking to Paul Charchian. He joins us on our progressive guest line. He's up there in the Twin Cities, so no better person to talk to about what the Vikings could potentially do tomorrow night than Charch. But let's take a look elsewhere because you've got some bets that have intrigued you. I want to jump down to this kind of long shot, and I do think it's fun to take some long shots bets. Yesterday, I took J.C. Latham to go 5. That cratered a little bit, so feeling all right there. It was a 27-1 yesterday. Still a long shot. We don't know what the Chargers are going to do, but you like a long shot in the AFC South. At number 7, the Tennessee Titans currently sit there. What is your long shot for the Titans?
Well, we like 25-1 odds, right?
Sure.
Okay, so guys, you're the Titans. You're sitting there at 7. You're within reaching range of a quarterback. You've got Will Levis. I'd like to remind people that Will Levis looked bad. I mean, really bad for most of last year. Now, do you guys remember his debut game, Week 8 against Atlanta last year, what Will Levis did?
I remember 4 tutties.
You got it, 4 touchdowns. Jonathan, the rest of the year, do you know how many touchdowns Will Levis threw?
I do, but only because I was on Follow the Money with Mitch and you told us this. 4.
That's right. We talked about this. 4 touchdowns the rest of the year. That's right. So he threw 4 touchdowns. So this guy was Pro Football Focus's 43rd ranked quarterback last year behind Easton Stick, Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, and Mason Rudolph. He was dead last in completion percentage behind guys like Bailey Zappi and Zach Wilson and Josh Dobbs and a dozen other non-functional NFL backups who found their way onto the field. There's a chance J.J. McCarthy drops to 7, and the Titans go, you know what? Fine, we'll take competition at the quarterback position. We don't have to automatically give a second year to a player who showed very little in year 1. We saw they tried it with Desmond Ridder, didn't end up working. They tried it with Kenny Pickett, didn't end up working. Maybe the Titans don't go down that path. That's possible.
One of the things that we haven't talked a lot about is running backs, because it doesn't seem like we're going to get one in the first round, but I know you got something here. So which of the running backs do you think goes first?
I love Trey Benson. And, some people got Trey Benson by various experts, either the first, second, or sometimes the 3rd ranked running back, but there's no clear number 1 runner. Mm-hmm. We can bet Trey Benson to be the first runner taken at plus 225. And man, is he good. He went to Florida State. He's fast. He's got good vision, patient, but he's a home run hitter too. And they started catching. He's never fumbled in college, and he's low miles because Florida State never goes bell cow back. Never. They always use rotations there. Trey Benson, to me, is the best runner in this class. You can get him at plus 225, and, you don't have to peg him to a team, although we'd love to see him go to like Dallas or Cincinnati. But I like those odds. So it's the second lowest odds available. I think he's the best runner in this class. I like it at plus 225.
We're talking once again to Paul Charchian, who joins us on our progressive guest line. So, Charch, one other long shot that I was contemplating throwing in you mentioned your 25-1 shot on Tennessee taking a quarterback was Malik Neighbors to go 4, which is currently occupied by the Arizona Cardinals. That's 18-1. Now, you go top 5, it's a little juicier. It's at plus 265. So my mindset was it seems likely that if it goes 1, 2, 3 wide receiver and you just need a blue chip player in Arizona, Harrison seems to be the guy, but are we so sure that Neighbors is not ahead of him on their board? We don't know. So that's why I'm thinking 18-1 might be a decent flyer. What's your thought process on Malik Neighbors and maybe hearing his name called earlier than expected, because I believe his over-under 6.5 with the kind of groupthink that he's going to New York at 6.
Yeah, Neighbors is so compelling at that number 4 or number 5 spot. And I love your plus 1,800. I mean, that's at number 4. That's great. Neighbors is neck and neck with Marvin Harrison Jr. in almost everybody's estimation. It's really close. Many have Harrison just a hair ahead. But here's the funny thing. If we look at just odds to go in the top 5, Marvin Harrison's odds to go in the top 5 is minus 1,800. Neighbors is plus 175. I think the math there is 10 times better odds for Neighbors to go in the top 5 than Marvin Harrison, and they could both go in the top 5. Neighbors could go Harrison to Arizona, Neighbors to the Chargers. They're both desperate at wide receiver. I mean, I like this one. Pick 5 with the Chargers. They traded Keenan Allen. They let Mike Williams go. Los Angeles current wideouts, Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer. That leads into former First Lady Laura Bush and a dollar store cup of noodles. They could easily go wide receiver here, and Malik Neighbors could easily go in the top 5, plus 155 to go in the top 5. But I love your plus 1,800 to go at pick 4. That's really juicy.
All right, before we let you run, Thursday night comes to a close. Charch, yes or no? The Vikings have a new quarterback.
No.
All right.
Defense.
Ooh, defense. Parlay that together, Charge. You make some money. Always appreciate it, sir.
Thanks, my friends.
There he is.
Have fun with Thor later on. Bye-bye.
Yes, Thor's our guy, too. Looking forward to talking to Thor Nystrom at 4 o'clock today, 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern. Best bets for tonight. We got a couple NBA games, NHL, thoughts on the NFL draft. It's VSiN Primetime.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Check out all of the great content up on the website at vsin.com. We have Tim Murray's second mock draft just 48 hours after his first. We have NBA playoff previews for both myself and Zachary Cohen. We have Major League Baseball best bets. We've got a full slate later today. And really good topic here from Michael Lombardi. Maybe we can hit this later with Dewey Scruggs. Michael Lombardi, are the Cowboys all in? Former NFL GM Michael Lombardi believes that even with a big draft, the Cowboys may still slip in the NFC East. Read that and more at vsin.com.
It is VSiN Primetime. I want to read you something. By the way, I appreciate your continued shade on my adjustment.
Part of my job. Actually, in my contract.
Mock 2.0. No more adjustments.
We'll mock your mock.
More adjustments. Coming for you, Sean Green. I want to read you this from The Athletic today. So their mock draft they did an exercise with, I believe, all the beat reporters. Actually, this was, I think, Jeff Howe, who covers the Patriots. And we were just talking about this with Charch. Arizona, they had trading from 4 down to 6. So the Giants trading up and getting a quarterback. I think it was J.J. McCarthy. And he said, quote, a couple of executives believed Neighbors could be the Cardinals' choice at number 4. So this would swerve as a big win if that's the case. Neighbors is a burner who would instantly help quarterback Kyler Murray, and the Cardinals have a glaring need at receiver, which I think the last part is absolutely accurate. It's not going to be an official play for the portfolio, but like the Latham long shot yesterday, I think 18-1, which is available in multiple books, DraftKings included, for Neighbors to go 4. Now, in this particular mock, it would be 6, right? Because the Giants would have traded up, so you would lose this bet. But I think Neighbors at 18-1 to go 4 kind of an interesting look. Just, once again, you're throwing darts, seeing what sticks, but...
Kind of a dangerous thing to do, though, right?
Yeah, but I'm not saying this isn't a full unit play.
Yeah, no, I know, but...
A couple pizza bet on Malik Neighbors.
Right, but if reacting to every bit of information that comes out is...
Look, I had heard a couple things recently regarding the possibility of Neighbors. We talked about it yesterday. No, we talked about it yesterday with Scott Smith, who is down there in Baton Rouge, and he said from the people he had talked to around Neighbors camp that it was Arizona was interested, but more than likely he's going to New York at 6, or Arizona could trade back to 6 and grab him there. But I think Neighbors at 18-1 to be the 4th overall pick is a fun kind of pizza bet long shot.
Well, Neighbors to be the 4th overall or to be selected overall
by
the Cardinals, right? Because
4th overall.
In that
Very
one,
different. Yes.
In that one you're reading, they trade down and get him at 6, right?
So you would lose the bet.
Yeah.
You would lose that particular play. There's a little bit, and I know I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm just doubting everything that's out there. But it was just been a foregone conclusion. Well, yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to go 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, do we know that for sure? I know he worked out for them or did his, workouts with them. But we don't know their board.
That's why. I go back to my original point I made about the number 2. It's funny what we choose to believe and what we don't. Like, a vast majority of people are like, no, it's Jaden Daniels, yeah, number 2. Everything we hear.
I'll say this. You're getting a couple people, like I said, Albert Breer, Daniel Jeremiah, both have come out today being relatively confident that Drake May is going to be the selection at 3. Odds don't reflect that. BetMGM, I just looked at right now. Drake May's plus 150 to go 3. Or excuse me, minus 150, I beg your pardon. Plus 130 is J.J. McCarthy. And I just keep coming back to the Tony Pauline report about Elliott Wolf. And then someone else mentioned this to me, and I think we're at the point where we're grasping for straws. But Tom Brady, Michigan national champion.
Oh, yeah.
J.J. McCarthy, Michigan national champion.
What round was Tom Brady selected?
Actually, Tom Brady, was he a national champion? 97? He was a starter in 98. I think he was on the team. He was in the 6th round, 199th pick. I don't know if you knew that. All right. Just a ponder there of Malik Neighbors. Maybe going number 4. What's up?
Before you throw to it, congratulations to everybody who had bet Naz Reid to win 6th Man of the Year.
Winner?
Winner, chicken dinner, baby.
All right. Let's head to it. Our best bets.
I see you using an old style.
I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom.
Putting our money where our mouth is.
I like to live dangerously.
It's time for Best Bets.
Come on, Jerry, it's a lock.
All right. We got 2 NBA games tonight. We will certainly give you the primetime primer on that, especially with Miami-Boston coming up at 7 o'clock Eastern. Boston, a 2-touchdown favorite at most spots. DraftKings actually has it at 14.5, total of 205.5. By the way, just a tip of the cap. On national television last night, JVT, totally in the moment, definitely didn't tape this multiple days in advance, nailed under in Minnesota-Phoenix.
Nice.
Crushed it. Miami-Boston, 14.5, 205.5 is the total. And Oklahoma City, New Orleans, 7.5 is the spread. Oklahoma City being the favorite. Total, 211.5. I don't think you have a side or total play. How are you looking potentially to attack either one of these games, JVT?
All right, so if we're going to go with the actual best bet, let's go over to New Orleans and Oklahoma City. We saw this thing open 8. We're down to 7.5. We saw the total open through 213.5. We're down to 211.5. We will not go with side or total here. We can get into that momentarily. Let's go to the player prop market. And I mentioned this to you the other day when we just briefly looked at this opener. But, the postseason's all about adjustments, right? And the name that I evoked is, if you remember in the NBA Finals, Kyle Lowry had quietly become a starter for the Miami Heat. He wasn't physically starting. He wasn't actually starting games, but his minutes load in the NBA Finals had become that of a starter. So if you're following that, you really got some value on betting some overs for Kyle Lowry. Well, I think you might be doing this the same thing, but with some unders. We saw in Game 1, Josh Giddey really got his minutes cut into. He only played 20 minutes for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Giddey's not a floor spacer. He is a guy who shoots 36% from 3. In fact, he actually shoots 34% from 3, 36 from the corners. You should be much more efficient from that. And you saw the Pelicans really willing to throw anybody on him, Tim. They had Jose Alvarado on him. They had Jonas Valanciunas on him. They weren't really too threatened by the shot and or the creation of one Josh Giddey. So what do you see? Well, he gets out of there, and some others, including Case and Wallace, not only play same amount of minutes, but they play in crunch time. And I think we might see an adjustment where Giddey might start to continue to see his minutes decline. We've seen a small adjustment in terms of the points for him and the rebounds, but I think when you account for, again, slower pace, much physical defense, and the potential change in minutes, might be worth going at it one more time. So Josh Giddey under points, rebounds, and assists, 20.5. Market would agree. Opened up at betted at minus 115. Got bet down to about minus 125, which was at the last look. So let's do it. Josh Giddey, under points, rebounds, and assists.
All right, 20.5?
Yes, 20.5. Yeah.
All right. The unders right now in the first round, this is not including the play-in, 11-3 to the under. Are we getting... Now, you had a great point yesterday, and this game actually did go over, which was Milwaukee and Indiana. You talked about where those games were during the season and where they had fallen to in the postseason. And yesterday, the only game that went over of the three was Indiana and Milwaukee. So are we getting to the point, JVT, where we look at under money came in on Boston, Miami. It's at 205.5, open 207. Oklahoma City, New Orleans, open 213.5. There's a 211 out there, 211.5. Are we getting to the point? Because I know you like to do this a lot, where is the market going too far? Are people just jumping in on this under trend where the market's going to adjust? It always does. What's your thoughts on where we stand right now, where the under has just been this cash cow this postseason at 11-3 in this round? And I forget off the top of my head what it was in the play-in tournament, but it was profitable there too.
Well, and here's the thing. What's interesting about this game is you mentioned the change. You always like to start, for example, so the opening number for game one was 215.5. The market actually bet that thing up to 216. Got as low as 214.5, but got bet back up there. So the initial thought by the market was to kind of push this game over. Not by much, but still look toward the over. And then, of course, we saw that go way under. So then you see this opener, and not only does it open where it's at 214.5, 213.5, but then it gets bet down. So we are at an interesting spot where the initial thought for the market was that this game was going to be somewhat an overplay at a higher number, and here we are now, market's betting it under. So it'd be pretty fascinating. I do think that we're probably at the point where, again, as we've discussed, right, the value's kind of gone from something like this. The market has made its adjustments, so you got to be able to pick and choose where you want to go. And I think that's why when you're looking at, again, like 211.5, you might not think on the surface, well, that's only 2 points. That's a lot, especially when you're betting unders in the NBA. So I think at this point, Tim, you wait for a couple of buckets, and if you want to bet this game under, you hope for a hot start and get under the total. I mean, the Pelicans, for example, in the second quarter of game one, I think they were 4 of 8, 5 of 8 from three-point range at one point. Like, they were hitting shots, and that game still went well under. So definitely look for maybe a hot start, get under if you want to. But at this point right now, it would be unplayable given where the number's at and where the market's adjusted to from the beginning of game one when it opened.
Quick before we hit a break, betting splits tonight. 52% of the bets, 59% of the handle, laying it with the Boston Celtics. Despite the unders being cash cows, 79% of the bets on the over in Miami, Boston. However, more split on OKC, New Orleans. More thoughts on tonight's NBA playoff action and where we stand in the other 6 series. It's VSiN PrimeTime.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Don't miss out on any of the NBA playoff action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From the play-in tournament to the finals, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with same-game parlays, live betting odds, boosts, and so much more. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code VSiN. New customers bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets instantly. It's code VSiN, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
That's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Tim Murray. Coming up top of the hour, Thor Nystrom. We'll talk some NFL draft with him. We've been breaking down the draft here for about a couple months with Thor ever since the NFL season concluded. I do want to circle back to something that you mentioned before we get to best bets. Anyone out there who had a Naz Reid 6th Man of the Year ticket, congratulations. He wins that award. He is just the 3rd ever 6th Man of the Year to win the award after not being drafted. Naz Reid, 13.5 points per game, 5.2 rebounds per game, shot 41% from 3. What did you make of this, JVT? Malik Monk had been the favorite. He gets hurt, and Naz Reid is able to kind of swoop in there.
Well, it is, and what was interesting about the whole dynamic of Malik Monk was even after he got injured, the market held pretty steady with him as an odds-on favorite. Mm-hmm. And that was part of, hey, if you had an opinion here, you could get in and get something pretty good. So it's not even really solid. I think preseason, like Mitchell, was 75-1. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about, plus 225, 3-1 on a guy that had a much better shot to win it, even though the market steadily thought Malik Monk's case was so strong that he remained an odds-on favorite despite an injury. And I think that was one of the points right now. I pointed out that I thought a guy like Norm Powell should have been, or should have had a higher probability, obviously not a finalist, but the overall point was, when we discussed it, Malik Monk is a very good 6-man of the year candidate, but this race is so tight that I think that he should probably be knocked off of odds-on favorite because the last 2-3 weeks of the season that he was going to miss were going to be impactful for candidacy. Seems like that was the case for some of these voters.
Keith Smith pointed out on Twitter, and he's not the only one, but it was very, very close. Apparently, Naz Reid won out by 2 first-place votes. The final tally, NBA PR hasn't released it yet, but a couple of folks who cover the league have seen it. 352 to 342, the final voting there. So Naz Reid of the Timberwolves, 6th man of the year. I'm trying to remember because we did a whole discussion on 6th man of the year. I want to know what the best price we could have got when Malik Monk got hurt.
It wasn't that. It was like 250.
Yeah, it was something. Yeah, it wasn't too crazy. It wasn't. No.
Reed's been up there for a while in terms of 6th man of the year candidates. And by the way, rightfully so. This is not going to be an award that I would gripe with in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. So the winner, Naz Reid, bringing it home. Do we know what's next?
I don't know the schedule in which they're giving these out. Obviously, I think the TNT broadcast, they give them out each time. So, you still have Coach of the Year coming up. You still have they gave out 6th man of the year already. They gave out, what did they give out the other day?
Most improved.
So Defensive Player of the Year, I think, is next. And I think that's next week, I believe. So, tracking the votes that have been released.
Twitter is going to be mad.
Well, Twitter's not going to be mad. It's just the betting Twitter who has tickets on them is going to be mad. They won't be able to explain why they're mad, but they'll be mad.
All right. So once again, Naz Reid, your defensive player, or excuse me, most improved. Jeez Louise.
Can I just
6th man of the year.
Clutch player tomorrow? Is that what it is? Okay, cool. So I think defensive players next week. I think I remember reading something about that. So, by the way, can I just point out really quickly?
Yeah.
Minnesota Timberwolves are up 2-0 in their series. Look pretty good on defense.
No.
And somebody's being very impactful. I'm just throwing it out there.
Anthony Edwards. So let's get to that. Minnesota opens up the series as a dog. I think, did it close even money for Minnesota or plus?
No, I saw a plus 115. It got high,
really?
Man. Yeah.
That high?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
The market had, it's last year again. The market had Phoenix as the favorite over Denver. It did not budge. It was kind of weird watching it, and you understood it to an extent. They did win the regular season series 3-0 by an average of double digits. But if you kind of looked into it, when you got 2 performances at home where you shot over 50% from 3, and your whole game plan, Tim, has to be, well, they can make tough shots. When you evaluated the game plan, that's what it was. That's why Phoenix was. We talked about this, right? I have this Minnesota Timberwolves futures ticket, and I really think that they can legitimately compete with Denver and potentially beat them if they get them in the second round, which seems to be destined. They're both up 2-0. But if you looked at this matchup, the one reason why you didn't want to play Phoenix was just because you're so good defensively, and this is just a team of really good bucket getters. And you can contest a shot, you can do all sorts of things, but these guys can hit tough shots, and that was kind of the game plan of they can just hit tough shots. And you've seen through 2 games, but that's not going to be the case. They're getting really physical with you, and they're allowing you to do it. Grayson Allen getting injured does not help because he's a very important piece for what they do.
And they have no depth, right?
And that's the other part.
Yeah.
They don't have any legitimate piece at center behind Yusuf Nurkic. Drew Eubanks seems like a fine human being. He's not going to. He shouldn't be a guy that should be started. That should be playing big minutes for you at center in the postseason. And so they're trying him at center. They're trying Kevin Durant at the 5 lineups. They're doing all sorts of things to kind of combat the fact that they don't have any depth. Maybe we see Bol at some point. Playing some pretty big minutes for him. But this is just such a poor mismatch for a Timberwolves team that has some depth, that has some fluid, some continuity. They've played together for a while too. It's just it looks on the surface like a nightmare, and it looks like the market, just again as we talked about, right, was looking for any little reason to bet the Phoenix Suns, and it looks like nothing is confirmed. but it looks like it's blowing up in their face.
Does this change your mind at all, knowing that next up for the T-Wolves is going to be Denver? Defenses look phenomenal, right? They've held Phoenix to, 93 last night and 90, was it 93 in game one? 90 in game one?
Something around there,
90, 95, excuse me. So they've held a Phoenix team with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker to 94 points on average the first two games. Both games have gone under with relative ease. Now it heads back to Phoenix on Friday night for a late-night tip there. But you have a future on the T-Wolves. Has this given you more belief in that ticket, or do you still think, or do you think the Nuggets is just a rough matchup for them?
No, I mean, I've had belief in this team for a while, in that, like, if there was a team, right, that you were going to construct to match up with Denver, it would probably look a lot like the Minnesota Timberwolves, wouldn't it? You have a defensive-oriented center. You got two of them, actually, in Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns to match up in any way, right, that you want to when it comes to Nikola Jokic. Obviously, you have the size to combat a front line that is very, very big. We don't really think of, I think, generally, Denver as a big team. But remember, Michael Porter Jr. starting the small forward. He's 6'10". So it's a big team that can rebound very well. You can combat that. You've got really good defensive wings in Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards to take on the pieces that they have. And Jamal Murray, Mike Conley is a good point of attack defender. You've got slightly better depth, right? Monty Morris is coming off of this bench now. You're kind of believing what you have. I believe in Minnesota in that if there was a team that was going to match up with them, and I've talked to a couple of people out there in Denver that cover the team, and there's somebody that I know out there that is ardent, like in my DMs, like, no, they're going to beat the Nuggets. Like, the Timberwolves are going to beat them. So they, from a matchup standpoint, and that's why I think we made fun of Doug Kazarian, or at least I did when we had him on a few weeks back. People keep talking about the most competitive sweep last year, which was the Denver Nuggets. The Timberwolves were very competitive. The Timberwolves beat them. Yes, yeah. Exactly. They won a game, right? That's a little bit more competitive than getting swept. So I think that this Minnesota team is finding their groove. They're getting better. This is why you play games, right? You'll lose a playoff series, or if you remember, to the Memphis Grizzlies when they blew all those 10, 20-point leads. You lose a playoff series to the eventual champion Denver Nuggets. You do all of these things. You get better as a squad, and now here you are with another crack at them potentially in the second round. Now, I think they match up well with Denver, and if there was a team that was going to upend them, it would either be Minnesota or the winner of this Clippers and Mavericks series.
So last night, we've talked about it a bunch here, and the exercise of looking at how the market has rated Milwaukee without Giannis, and ultimately, as you pointed out, they have them rated as the worst team in the playoffs.
Looked like it last night.
It didn't look good last night, so it's now evened up 1-1. DraftKings has flipped the Indiana Pacers, who have now secured home court for the time being, unless they lose a game at home, to a minus 125 favorite, plus 105 for the Denver Nuggets. Milwaukee Bucks. Game 3, Indiana now is a 5-point favorite, 5.5 at some spots. Yeah. Is this too juicy, or did last night scare you?
Well, last night scared you in that you don't know how healthy Chris Middleton's going to be. So, he went down, looked like it was an ankle injury. He did end up playing, but after 2 days, it's the same worry with Kawhi, right? Like, after 2 days off, you would think, like, oh, cool, it's rest. Well, that thing can pop up, right? It can inflame. It can do all sorts of things. Same thing with Chris Middleton. So I think there's probably some concern there. Is Milwaukee going to be as healthy as they can without Giannis Antetokounmpo? And I think that's where you kind of start with the health of Chris Middleton. But outside of that, as somebody who has said that to an extent, I think you get kind of stubborn here and say, yeah, I think that is going to be the case. I don't think that Indiana rates as a better team. You got 2 games that would say 2 different results, but we'll see what the market does, because the Indiana Pacers seem like the Dallas Mavericks, but to a lesser degree, in that the market is behind those 2 teams in these respective series. So do you get a point where this just gets driven up and you can get a 6 or maybe even a 6.5 by the time you get to tip off? By the way, you see what time this thing tips off on Friday?
5:30 Eastern.
Yeah, what the hell are we doing?
It's going to start before we're on the air.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. It's part of a triple header, I guess, on ESPN, but yeah, come on.
5:30. This is like a November college basketball game in Myrtle Beach. What the hell are we doing?
Is Indiana Eastern time?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's right.
That's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Tim Murray. NFL Draft is tomorrow. Our guy Thor Nystrom going to help us break down where's his beloved J.J. McCarthy going to land.